Hi y'all, Kraken Latte here. It's that time again where I bring you my tips, facts, or experience that you may or may not find helpful. Starting on the 15th of June and going all the way until the 11th of July for NA servers, the Winds of Sanctuary buff will be upon us. What is this, you ask? Why, it's a delicious 50% experience and reputation buff. You smell that? Smells like leveling season to me. That's almost a full month of intensely buffed leveling. Just before the buff goes live next week, I will have a video covering exactly what the Winds of Sanctuary buff will overlap with, how to get way more than just the base 50%, and how to make the most of it for leveling. In this video, however, we need to talk about preparations to make sure that we do not waste a moment of it when it's here. We are now at that point in an expansion where folks are either moving on to other games or dusting off their old alts to level, or even making new ones in order to try a new class, collect new transmogger mounts, get ready for raiding, jump into PvP, or whatever you prefer. That's why this buff is well timed and certainly welcome. So let's look at the steps I am taking to make sure we are all ready for this. Whether you are making a new alt or dusting the cobwebs off an old one, if you have not played that alt at all or in quite some time, it's going to need some maintenance. Talents have changed drastically. Heirlooms have a new rank. The base WoW UI has been totally redone. There are new bags, new Mog, and new mounts to collect. And most importantly, the Darkmoon Fair is in town right now for only a couple more days after this video goes live. So, here's my process. Step 1. Log into that alt, old or new, and check out your user interface. If you've not been on this alt in a long time or it's brand new, you are going to need to set up your UI. Even if you're not using add-ons, the base WoW UI has had major upgrades lately, so you may need to adjust that. If you do have add-ons, make sure they are up to date and anything with profiles are ready to go on that alt. Do all that now so that you don't waste time when the buff is active. Step 2. Now with your user interface set up, if you haven't already, get your heirlooms on or check the ones you're already wearing. Depending on what level you are, you may need to upgrade your heirlooms, and this is important because once you outlevel them, they will stop scaling and stop giving you their set bonuses, which is literally the point of wearing them. Either next week or the following, I will have a video out on different ways to upgrade your heirlooms to avoid spending gold on them. But for now, just equip what you have or use gold to upgrade them if you prefer. Step 3. Get that new alt into your guild. Whether it's a personal one or one with friends, doing it now makes sure you get your guild reputation early so that you can access the remote guild bank or whatever guild specific perks yours has unlocked. If you are making cross-faction alts for the first time and need to get into your own guild of the opposite faction, I do have a guide on that because it is a bit of a pain if it's a solo guild. Check that out if you need to, link is in the description. Step 4. Now get your alt's butt over to your faction capital of Stormwind or Orgrimmar. If you're making a fresh level 1 non-allied race alt, I recommend choosing Exile's Reach because it will make sure you get to at least level 10 before you leave and should not take more than 30 minutes. And yes, I am suggesting you do that now before the buff is live so that you can prepare for other things in this list. If you are a fresh Demon Hunter or non-allied race Death Knight, obviously you will have to do your starting zone before you can get to your capital city. So do that now. Yes, I know you have to level a little without the buff, but you cannot do much to prep or turn on other XP buffs like War Mode or Darkmoon Fair until you finish it, since we just don't get a choice for those two classes' starting zones. Now, we have the normal new alt or updating old alt little steps. Step 5. Check your bags and get new ones if you have to. They do go up to 34 slots now, I believe, though I do still prefer the 30 slot bags myself because they divide by 10 evenly and look nice with my setup. Step 6. Get the items you like to use while leveling into your new bags. For me, this is the $1 on Hearthstone, Deep Home Potions, and a stack of Goblin Gliders. Regardless of what level I am, I use all 3 of these frequently because they make traveling much easier than without them. Water Walking Potions, Water Breathing Potions, and the Shimmer Scale Diving Suit are also fantastic items if you plan to go somewhere that has quests near, around, or under the water. If you use other items yourself, make sure you get those too now. Step 7. Mounts, Mounts Equipment, and a Mount Macro. Mount equipment is a must-have for me because I use the comfortable Rider's Barding. This prevents you from being dazed or dismounted by mobs, which is arguably the most frustrating mechanic in the game. Like, seriously. Choosing the new mounts you want that alt to ride can also be fun and is something I like to do, so now's a good time to do that. If my alt is level 60 or higher, I use a macro that includes a dragon riding mount, a ground mount, a regular flying mount, and an underwater mount all on one button. This can be super handy for leveling in the Dragon Isles or even in the future when dragon riding is available elsewhere. If you'd like that macro and need to see how it works, which you will need to see it, I have a video on how to get that set up linked in the description. Also make sure to check the description of that video because that macro has been updated to work inside instances. And there's a druid one too. Step 8. Mog your alt. You might have done this already, but the reason I'm saying it now is because you cannot use most Mog until level 10, something you might not have noticed. And you can't mount until level 10 anyways if you were starting at level 1, so no yak yet. Something also to note is that Shadowlands Transmog has now had its level requirement reduced to level 10, so you might have some tasty, more new Mog that you can slap on your new scrub. Step 9. It's now time to choose your class's specialization and all of your talents. The talent trees are, well, actual trees now, and have a ton of different options for you. So even if you're an old alt far higher than level 10, if it's been a while, you may want to look at your talents and rethink your setup. That can certainly take a while to think about, making sure everything synergizes and such, so do it now before the buff is here. Step 10. If you want professions for leveling, now's the time to pick them up. Herbalism and mining are the good ones, though I actually don't do this step myself because urban ore nodes can be way too distracting for me, and I tend to do worse when I level with them. So I actually don't pick them up at all until the alt is leveled, something to keep in mind if you might have the same problem as me. But if you can control yourself, herb and ore nodes can be good extra sources of XP, and you can sell them for gold on the auction house later as well, so the choice is yours. Step 11 is to turn on Chromie time if you are lower than level 60. This will make sure you can level almost wherever you want until you hit 60. It does not matter which one you choose though, because the experience scaling is not different between these options, nor does it phase you from the other expansion options. So I just choose Legion to go get the $1 on Hearthstone. Step 12 is to pause here a moment and decide where you want to level this alt. Deciding that now can be majorly beneficial because you won't have to think about it when the buff is here. You will want to do this because if you plan to level by questing in the open world like I do, then you may want to go set your hearth there at whatever that expansion's main city is. In my case, I'm going to be leveling in Shadowlands, so I set my hearth in Oribos. If you want to level in the Battle for Azeroth or the Warlords of Draenor zones, however, I suggest you keep your faction city hearth where it is for now, because those expansions have introductions that give a great experience, and you will want to do those when you have your buffs. Legion Dalaran is another example where you don't want to change your hearth, because we get a special Dalaran specific Hearthstone. That's why planning is important. The Winds of Sanctuary buff also overlaps with 2 different time walking events which are queuable on any level 60 alt or higher. I'll talk more about that in the video about the buffs coming, but this is something to keep in mind for this step. If you plan to level in the open world like I do, I happen to have leveling guides that would be perfect for this. My level 60 to 70 guide for Dragonflight will feel like a breeze with these insane buffs, especially if you upgrade your heirlooms with the new Dragonflight rank. And my level 1 to 50 guides from Shadowlands, while the title is now deceiving, actually will get you to about 57 without any buffs. With these buffs, however, you may not even complete the route, so those will be awesome for the duration of this buff. Links to all of those will be also in the description down below. Step 13 is to turn on War Mode if you are level 20 or higher and plan to quest in the open world like I do. You cannot turn it on until level 20, but I highly recommend it for leveling when you are lower than level 60. Above level 60, however, I don't actually recommend it for questing in the current expansion zones because those are more populated and not sharded by Chromie time, and thus you could get ganked a heck of a lot more. But either way, this is an extra 10% of an XP buff, so you will want this because this will make that juicy 50% buff into an even juicier 60% buff. Step 14 is the main reason we're doing this prep right now, because the Darkmoon Fair is here for just a couple more days after this video goes live, and we want to save that buff. Yes, you can save the Darkmoon Fair buff on your alts, even if it's over. It only lasts an hour, however, and of course you won't be able to refresh it when the fair is not here, but that's why we want to set our Hearthstones where we want to level first so we don't waste it. So, head to the Darkmoon Fair and pick up that buff. Once you have the full 60-minute buff, use your Hearthstone of choice to get over to the city where you plan to start questing when the Winds of Sanctuary buff goes live. Step 14 is now to log out of this alt, and do not log back into that alt until the Winds of Sanctuary 50% experience buff is active. We want to save our Darkmoon Fair buff so that we get a wicked 70% total experience buff while leveling if we are questing in the open world with Darkmoon Fair and War Mode on, at least for an hour. And if you made sure to log out right where you set your hearth, you will gain rested experience as well while you're logged off. That will help speed along your leveling even more, because leveling with rested experience is actually surprisingly impactful. While that Darkmoon Fair buff will only last 60 minutes, you can get a lot done in an hour if you make sure to use it wisely, especially since we're stacking the buffs here, which is why we did all this preparation to begin with. Sweet, right? Now when the buff is active, all you have to do is log in and go ham. And as a bonus tip to those of you who stuck around to the end of the video here, there is also another way to get an additional 10% experience buff so long as you are lower than level 50. The Draft of 10 Lands is an XP buff potion that we can get from the Battle for Azeroth service medals vendor in Borealis or Dazara lore. However, the drawback here is that these require the 7th Legion or Honor-bound service medals currency to buy, and those are a pain in the butt to farm now. They are account-bound items, the potions are, luckily, so you can farm on your main and mail them to your alts. But you know about that now, so the choice is yours. Did you know I stream on Twitch now? I do everything from transmog to leveling to gold making, and I'm live 5 days a week to chat with, so come hang out. And there we have it. If you think I've missed information or you want to request I do a specific guide, let me know in the comments below. Even if I don't answer you, I just might add your idea to my list. As always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's never too latte.